I'm DM Allen, and let me tell you about a book that changed my DM life. Grimtooth's Traps, published by Flying Buffalo. This quirky blue book was published in 1981, and I tell you that this book will change your life if you haven't heard of it already. It is a phenomenal book, and the best part is it's rules agnostic. You can use this with Pathfinder, any of the editions of D&D, absolutely any RPG, because this book focuses on the traps and how they work, not necessarily what dice you roll, what saves you make, or anything like that. It focuses on the mechanisms, and that's what feeds your DM's fire and really just gives you this disturbing need to destroy your PCs. Now, this book has a phenomenal aesthetic and voice to it, which I'm quite frankly surprised about. In the 1980s, you really didn't have this kind of reading level where you could just pick it up and read it at, I don't know, most ages can read through this. Instead, if you're reading through a module from the 1980s or any part of early D&D, you have to have some sort of higher education for these nerd level words. I tell you, I am a very nerdy person, and these old modules tend to put me to sleep, but this book doesn't. And that's what makes it great, is it's an easy read with a funny character and a voice all the way through that tells you, I know why you're here, and we're going to fix your problem of not being able to kill your PCs, or at least horribly maim them to the point where your players think twice before entering your dungeons. Now, as you open this book, you are going to notice that it is well organized. But I tell you what, take that organization, set it aside for a later time, because the best way to go through this book is by looking at the pictures. These are simple traps in these pictures, and they are really well defined. Now, what I love about these traps is they are dirt simple, and that means not only is it easier for you in taking less DM processing units, but you can use spoken word in order to convey everything you need to about these traps, and your players aren't going to be shorted if you're doing theater of the mind or mapping it. So do yourself a favor and look at these phenomenal drawings. They are absolutely descriptive to a disturbing level, and you can get some really good inspiration from these things. And honestly, this book doesn't have much bad to say about it. I think this is going to be an enjoyable read for most DMs, and it's going to really fill your toolbox full of ideas for traps, for dungeons that you really are going to talk about for months and years to come with your players. And because I love this book so much, I'm going to go through 5 of my favorite traps out of it. Number 5, Folly Flight. Now, this trap shows how simple you can get your encounter traps down to, and still make your dungeon memorable and interesting. This one seems to be very loosely based off of a simple mouse trap, where the party encounters a flight of stairs, and the stairs actually has a hidden fulcrum. So when the party gets past the halfway point, the top starts tipping downward, and they all fall through. It's a devious trap, yet simple, and it's hard for seasoned rogues to figure out. Number 4, Seesaw Corridor. This trap is simple, and it's very similar to Folly Flight. What I love about it is you can alter this trap in a few different ways that really can catch your players off guard. One of the ways is to get rid of that dead end and make it a straight through corridor. All you need to do is make your spike a trap door so that when it falls, your trap door swings open into spikes. It makes it very simple, and it makes it hard to detect, and will surely leave one of your PCs with a scar or two. Number 3 on my list is the Gray Stroke Memorial. Now, this trap is a trap that really shows DM overkill. You are given a trap where the players see a block and tackle, and it turns out to be a false pulley, which pulls further down than it's supposed to, and for some reason swings into a bolt that catapults into the character. Now, you can use this trap in a few different ways. You can use this trap as a alternate route trap that puts them on a path that maybe they weren't supposed to go on. Or you can do this just like how the book shows and really put the hurt on one of your player characters. Either way, this trap is certainly going into my tool belt, because the crux of it is the DM giveth and the DM taketh away. Because traps like these help players break through that mental block of thinking that what they're given in a dungeon is safe. If I give you something as a DM, it could be a weal or a woe at this point, instead of being just a tool that you use later, much like Zelda. Number 2 broke my mind and taught me something that I really should have known for a long time, and that is alchemical reactions are really, really clever. I'm talking about the Nefarious Nymph statue. This statue is built out of something like sodium, and it is placed behind a curtain of water, like a waterfall, or maybe you dive down and you have to come back up. Well, you make this statue look so impressive that the players want to bring it back through that water, and that water creates a reaction. And if you haven't seen sodium hit water, especially a large chunk of sodium, you are doing yourself a disservice. Yeah, they explode. It blows up, and it's a really, really cool effect. Now, what I would highly suggest is you don't tell your players it's sodium, because it would take a very large amount of sodium and kind of a long time for you to get a very large explosion. Just explain it away with a magical alchemical reaction. Now, number 1, between a rock and a hard place. I love this trap. This trap gave me so many DM ideas. I gained a lot of inspiration from this. And what I love about it is it's a trap that you don't really expect it. And if you imagine like a character having a bad day, they fall into this trap. Well, let me explain it. So this trap is a trapdoor scenario where the character might not have noticed that the trapdoor will open up, and at the bottom is a switch which the door will hit and start burning away this rope. To throw salt in the wound, holds up a freaking block of stone above their head, right? Now, the character lands on a pressure plate, and that pressure plate is the only thing holding that rope in place to keep that rock from dropping on them. First reaction, climb out. Make this trap short enough that your player characters want to climb out, because that's the only way you're going to see that splat. Now, I would recommend, if you're playing in something like 5e, that you do something where the character gets out of the trap, and as a reaction, the trap drops. It's a really great way to explain it away, and I just love the image of watching a player be like, oh, that wasn't that bad, and then boom, 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 2-ton rock. There goes their character. Or you have severely damaged them in preparation for the big bagged evil guy. I think my favorite part about this trap, though, is what it shows in the mechanics. You can do something slightly elaborate with just some simple mechanics. This is going to make your dungeon feel a little more alive, and it's going to make it more memorable. And that's what we're looking for, right? Now, favorite traps aside, how are you going to use these traps nowadays? Of course, they were put out in the 1980s when it was DM versus player. You were there to die, and the DM was there to kill you. And if you as a character made it out, you beat them. Well, that mentality has kind of fallen by the wayside. To pit DMs and players against each other really hasn't created this great vibe for storytelling, which is hugely popular today. Whether you're telling a story through a podcast or just playing with your friends, nowadays everybody's looking for a little bit of storytelling and a little bit of RP. And so how do you fit these kind of traps in Vogue culture? And I really think the best way to do it is pre-explain to your characters. Tell them before they go on this journey that you are going into a super deadly dungeon. No adventurer has ever come back. Nah, you don't want to go up to that dungeon up there. That dungeon, it kills people. Today's culture has really moved away from that kick the door in, kill the monster, and grab the loot. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't space for something like this. Take your traps and litter them through different scenarios. Use them like monster encounters. You can put these traps in the woods. You can put these traps in caves. It doesn't have to be a dungeon. Think of these as monsters or something that you just happen upon. Think of how characters in your world have interacted with these traps previously and why they've survived or why they haven't, and then tell the story through those survivors or through the corpses that are still left. This is a great way to make your trap super memorable so that in a couple of weeks or even a couple of years, your players are going to go, you know, that trap, that was pretty solid. Yeah, my guy died, and I hate you for it, but it was fun. Something else that you can do with these traps to kind of change it up if you're playing published material is swap traps out. Like think of like Tomb of Annihilation, right? Many players have played Tomb of Annihilation, and especially if you're throwing the tomb into a homebrew campaign where someone might recognize it, or if you're actually just playing the hardcover, don't feel bad if you're going to change out these traps. It creates a little bit of this unexpected, which gives it that flavor of life that players, when they replay the dungeon, are going to respect. And remember, this book isn't just for take the trap and use it. It is a really great DM's fuel. Use these traps and these concepts as tools and building blocks so that you can design your own traps. Maybe you start recognizing that these flip traps, they have one weakness and you take care of it through your own design. That's really what this supplement is great at, is exposing you to something that's kind of been lost through current culture. Trap design. All right, thank you to Flying Buffalo for allowing us to use this copywritten material and review this really phenomenal book that everybody needs to hear about. If you want a physical copy of this book, go check out Flying Buffalo's website. The link is in the description below. And if you want a PDF version, it's over on DriveThruRPG. I've got an affiliate link below that'll take you right there. All right, you really need to do yourself a service and go check that book out now. And then after that, come back and tell me about it in the comments. What trap you cooked up, or what was your favorite trap? Also, hit us up on social media at DM's Table on Twitter or at the DM's Table over on Facebook. And if you want to help support DM's Table, go check out our Patreon at patreon.com/DM's Table. Also, we've got a really fun community that you really need to check out. Go hit us up on Twitter at DM's Table or Facebook at the DM's Table for a link to our Discord to get access to some really fun content. All right, that's all I've got for this video, and I'll see you out on the internet. Bye, guys.